Good afternoon, partners. This is Sherman Crancer from Microsoft, Senior Partner Channel Development Manager for the Western United States. I want to say thanks so much for coming on today. So, today we've got a great lineup. I mean, this information today is really going to help our partners with really, analyzing Azure opportunities and what is really probably the cornerstone of Azure, which is called infrastructure as a service or platform as a service. So I want to say thank you to everyone who registered on the link, the aka.ms/PLG call. Really appreciate it. We are going to be raffling a drone this afternoon and basically looking at the registrants at our Constant Contact event registration page. That page is going to be used every week, and we would really appreciate it if you went ahead, and I know it might be taking a few extra moments of your time, but please register. It helps us to help provide value and metrics for headquarters to make sure that we can continue these types of calls. So we will be raffling off, so if you registered for an event, you're on the call, stay to the end, and we will tell everyone who won. So the next thing is the agenda. What are we covering today? And I think what's really important is we always start off with thought leadership. We start off with something that you can take through the week and think about and possibly implement it within your practice. Next, we have an incredible special guest. And I'm not going to say his name just yet, but we're actually extremely lucky to have him down here because what he's going to bring to the table is just going to absolutely blow you away. Then we'll get into how to produce and sell and price Azure hybrid solutions. Then we're going to do something real neat, kind of change of pace. Instead of package of the week, we're actually going to get into business decision discovery questions. So these are actually things that are going to help you sell, help you market your product. So pay attention to those because we're really going to figure out how do we use open-ended questions to the advantage of the partners. Then we will talk about partner tools. And these are three can't miss partner tools that we will talk about at length today that Microsoft provides and that partners should be taken care of. We'll wrap it up with the project LeadGen, things that you need to do, and then we'll go into the summary. All right, well, thanks so much. So let's get into the thought leadership portion of it. This is where we get a chance to take a step back from our business and actually think about something different. And what I wanted to do is actually come with a new term, and it's really called metanoia. And if you're not familiar with what the term means means a new way of thinking. I think one of the most important things today is to really look at your business and look at the way people are buying today. Things have changed considerably. Things are faster. Technology is evolving at a pace that even people that are inside Microsoft, including myself and our special guest, are like, oh my gosh, it's just so fast. It's almost unbelievable. But with that, sales and marketing techniques have changed as well. No longer is it where a company comes and checks out your website and then, scrolls through the 22 different tabs you have across to see what you're offering and all about the business models and needs. We know now that 96% of buyers that are on the internet have already made their decision to buy. So when they get to your website, it's direly important that you have changed and you have evolved in a way that you can help capture those people who have come to your web page with an easy way to buy or a video testimonials out there. But the message today is really to change the way you are approaching your business. And that's what we kind of do every single week. We're becoming different. We're daring to be remarkable in a day and age where we see so much static out there. We're changing the way that we're approaching the business because we don't want to be the same as every other IT or MSP contractor out there. We don't want to have the same proposal. We don't want to be within the same 7% ratio as all of the other proposals. We want to be different. And that's what I'm hoping to help you understand today is how can you approach something a bit different, right? Change yourself, the way that your customers think of you, the way the community thinks of you, and put yourself in a position that when you're in front of customers and organizations, that your pitch is so different than the static that is out there, the way that people thought in the past, right? That you're winning more deals because of it. And that's what we're trying to help you do. So we understand that there's an evolution in technology and an evolution in how we think. So one of the main key concepts that I think, I was reading in a great book just the other day, was really about consultative selling, right? And what we're finding in today's day and age, it really isn't all about just the problems, find the pain, the fear, or the uncertainty and doubt. It's really about understanding that they probably already know what they want, right? And what they're going to buy and kind of the ideas of it. And you have to accelerate and fast forward your relationships into becoming true friends. I think one of the best ways, and I think a friend taught me this actually when I was quite a bit younger. He basically came up to me and said, "Hey Sherman, how are you doing?" It was very sincere. And I thought to myself, my gosh, that was very sincere, and it really helped me open up and talk to one of my dear friends that I have today. And I never was able to do that before in the past. I think something like that on a personal note transfers over to business. And I think that, in your first 5 minutes of any appointment, that is the most important time of any appointment. I think it's more important than the close, more important than the setup, more important than the open-ended questions. It's the first 5 minutes. And how do you fast forward that first 5 minutes into some sort of personal bond or some sort of relationship where they feel comfortable in doing business with you, but also feel comfortable in helping you understand what are some of their big problems and issues that they have to resolve. Business decision makers today are different than they were yesterday. Yesterday it was all about IT, and they're making the choices for infrastructure, and that was pretty much it. Now, if you go into a business, you're not only helping with that piece, but you're really helping with business decision maker processes. The marketing department, the HR department, all these different departments that are within a company. You as a thought leader in the IT industry can now help all of those different departments become more efficient, become more successful, drive bigger revenue, make more money, make a name for themselves. So this is what we're talking about, is a new way of thinking of how you're approaching the customers that you're talking to. We want you to approach every opportunity with curiosity. I want you to go into every opportunity that you have and almost be over curious. Curious not just about what they have and what they're doing, but curious about who is a stakeholder within an organization. Who's the one who actually makes the decision? Who's the one that doesn't make the decision? Or are there stakeholders inside that organization that could block your proposal? So by being curious, overly curious, asking about the politics that are possibly within a community or within an organization, asking about, well, if the Western region BDM says, okay, I want to do this, but the East region BDM says no, and business decision maker for the acronyms, I apologize, says no, but the East BDM is best friends with the actual general manager. Maybe the person you're talking to, if you did not know the politics behind something like that, may not ever get your proposal through and onto, an actual contract. So being curious is so very, very important. So with that, you want to strive, and this is what I always talk about. The mantra is strive to be remarkable. Strive to be different. Okay, strive to make 10 more calls than any of the other partners out there. Strive to, be a better tactician, strategist, somebody who is a thought leader. Strive to learn more, right? And I'll leave you with this on the thought leadership piece. Dreamers talk about what they're going to do, and leaders do what they talk about. That's my mantra every single day. I repeat it every single morning, and I hope you can start doing that too. If you're on the call today, you're a leader, and that's awesome. I love to see it. So we're lucky to have you, and we want to give you the best content possible. All right, let's move into that. Enough with the thought leadership. Let's get into the guest of the week. So we're really lucky. We have Garrett Bundy, who's the partner technology strategist on the call today. We are so lucky to have him because he's basically the brains behind the Western region technical resources. I mean, unbelievable. Garrett, would you properly introduce yourself and what you do for Microsoft?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hey, Sherman, thanks for that introduction, and thanks again for giving me the opportunity to even be here and be a part of this call. I really appreciate it. So as Sherman mentioned, I am based here in the West region, and I am part of partner enablement. So when it comes to all things partner enablement for the Western region and the Desert Mountain states, that's what I do. My entire goal in life is to help our partners really excel in their practices and ultimately make more money.
Thanks, Garrett. Really appreciate it. We get into this next piece of it, and it's really the thoughts, thoughts from Garrett, right? And this is where we're going to get a lot more insight inside of, what Garrett does. So Garrett, tell us about your background, because a lot of partners probably don't know the resource exactly. Tell us your background and how you're involved with the Western region team.
Yeah, so our team is called the TS2 team, also known as Technical Sales and Strategy. And a big key part of that is really around strategy. Now, I've been at Microsoft for 11 years at this point, and I came into the partner channel about a year ago. Actually, just celebrated a year being in the channel. And part of what we do and what we try to do is enablement and readiness. And so what we do is we do events like SMB Lives. We do things like phone calls, right? We have our weekly partner phone calls that are based on the information that's current for that month. And so these are the types of things that our team really does. We're very active on social media. We're putting up blogging posts, pretty much 24 to 30 of them every month. I'm part of a team of 13 people that span across the entire United States, and we cover all the different regions as well as all of our distributors in the market.
Well, that's amazing. That gives our partners a good delineation of really what you do. I'm on the sales and marketing side, and I have a little bit of technology, but nowhere close. And I'm the expert on that, but Garrett's the expert on the technical side. So what type of engagements? When you're in an engagement involved in something, what type of engagements are you conducting with partners in the West region?
Yeah, so right now the big thing is really around Azure, right? And how to help partners build their Azure practice. We look at what kind of things that partners are focused on to get their customers moving in the direction of this hybrid IT infrastructure. So a lot of our engagements, a lot of things I do are working hand in hand with partners, both via email as well as phone calls and even sometimes in person, to really help them build that practice and help get those customers moving on their journey into the hybrid IT cloud.
That's awesome. I think it gives great perspective. So what are three things that you would say? Because you talk to so many different partners, right? What are three things that you would say to a new partner that is trying to build a practice?
Well, I think the first thing that every partner needs to understand is that there's a lot of information out there. At Microsoft, especially with Azure, there's a lot to take in. So it's really important that you figure out what your specialty niche is going to be when you're building your Azure practice, or any practice for that matter. I think the second thing is leverage the fact that you probably have some sort of internal use rights, right? So you have a way to take our technology and use it today at either a free or even a reduced cost. And the third thing is you have to have somebody internally that's going to be your champion for that specific product. So if you're looking at building an Azure practice and you're saying, I want to build a practice around Azure backup, then you need to make sure you have somebody at your company that is dedicated, or semi-dedicated at least, to just working on that Azure practice of backup so that they can champion the entire process from start to finish.
Oh, that's great. So does the I think you kind of already touched on this, but does the TS2 have any technical trainings available for partners? I mean, coming from you guys that are in the field, in the trenches?
One of the key things that we do deliver twice a year are the SMB Live series of events, which I'm sure most people have heard of. Those are great technical opportunities for partners to get information. But more than that is our social media and our blog. Our blog is very active with not only trainings that we're doing, but trainings that Microsoft in general has out there and available for partners to leverage and to consume to really help them along the path of making more money.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So the thoughts from Garrett, really, are amazing because they provide us with a lot of ideas, and being able to interface with Garrett, I think, is really important. So I guess that falls into the last question: is when should a partner request your engagement or feedback?
Yeah, so when you're working on a deal or you're looking at an opportunity that you think is going to be a potential good one for you, and you just need that extra layer of support or that extra level of, hey, this is what we're looking at doing, these are kind of some of our ideas, we wanted to get another set of eyes to look at this, or we want your thoughts about, this is what the customer's doing today, this is where they want to go, how is it possible to get from point A to point B? Those are the kind of engagements and the kind of resources that we can bring to bear, no matter where you are, to help you really land those deals and make these opportunities, convert them into actual sales for you.
Perfect. I think that's a really great way to engage and talk. And I think we're actually very, very lucky to have these types of resources. Many partners don't even realize that we have them for them. I mean, as you know, Garrett, right? That there's so much at Microsoft. There's so many websites, there's so many links. Knowing where to go and to concisely get the right information is sometimes very difficult. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a bunch of information that's out there, and you can find that information spread across multiple different websites. And what my team tries to do is tries to almost curate that content and create a central repository that partners that are looking for technical resources can have a single point that they can go to really understand what's going on in the market today.
Awesome. All right, so let's move into the next one. It's really how to sell Azure hybrid cloud solutions, price, and design. You've probably all been looking for this. You're probably all wondering, is Sherman going to tell me the magic, easy way to do this, to sell it? And actually, it's not just me, but Garrett's involved here today too. So what we're going to do is actually break it down on a pretty high level, right? But we're going to give you the resources to be able to do the three of these things. It's how to sell it, how to price it, and then really how to design it and create the value opportunity. So we always start with, transforming the data center. We always have this big slide. It's got all this information in it. And I'm glad that you've all read it in 2 seconds because it's already gone. So we're going to break it down individually for that. So the first thing really is going back to how to sell Azure hybrid cloud solutions. And it really is, customer needs and requests. So what we first need to understand really is what a customer is thinking, right? You have to take a step back and take your mind away from, we're just going to sell servers, we're going to sell on-prem stuff. We got to think about, okay, things are changing. The internet's here. Hybrid infrastructure is here. It's not going to change. It's not going away, and it's only going to be consumed greater and greater and greater, right? So what we have to do is we have to understand, the customer needs. So first one is we have to understand that there's a lot of organizations out there that have a struggle with infrastructure spend, right, for their infrastructure, whether it's a CapEx or an OpEx. And what that means is really, do they want to pay up front, for a server, right, that's, $10,000, right? But then they have to stay up front, and they have to pay for the licensing and the upkeep and all that. Or do they want to actually pay this over time? All depends on the customer, but I would imagine that a lot of organizations might want to take a look at an OpEx model because depreciation purposes. You'd probably have to go talk to an accountant specifically to get this. But that's one of the things that we have. It looks like we have a transition on the slide, so it keeps wanting to move forward. The next thing is the need to reduce costs. I think that most organizations are thinking, gosh, how much does this server really cost? Now, if you were to take a $10,000 server, let's say that the actual, for the server alone, without the software included. So we take the server, we add in the software, we add in the installation, we add in the infrastructure costs, and then what we do is we take that over 5 years and we add in the upkeep, and then we start depreciating the asset, and then we have to upgrade the asset because over 5 years, since everything is changing so fast, they have to upgrade it because it's slowing, the performance is slowing, and the programs are bigger, and the programs need more information, right? Now, what's interesting about that is the cost of that $10,000 server over 5 years could be north of, about $30,000, right? Well, what is the cost of a, Azure hybrid solution for maybe the same type of server? And if you really broke it down, you'd be significantly less. We're not going to tell you, okay, it's going to be this specific price or this, because that's not what we're here to do today. We're here to help you kind of understand how we're going to position it. Next, the customer is thinking about ensuring and security of their programs and infrastructure, right? They want to secure it. So they're thinking to themselves, okay, my server right now is in my closet, right? And it's behind a broken handle, or maybe it doesn't have power, or alternate sites that or alternate areas where it can get the power and the air conditioning. So they're thinking, okay, now I really need security. We're seeing all of these breaches out there. We need to figure out about something else. They want to make sure that their stuff is working because of the change in technology, that it's actually morphing so fast, and the requirements today from yesterday are just absolutely enormous. They're struggling with that piece. And then I think lastly, Garrett, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's funny. One of the conversations I have with partners all the time really is around the fact that Gartner came out with a study that said IT budgets are expected to grow by a whopping 0.6% this year. 0.6%. So IT is really being asked to do a lot more today than they ever have been, with far fewer resources when it comes to financing. So when you start looking at this opportunity to create this hybrid environment where you're no longer having to spend $10,000 or $15,000 to build a server, now you can spend in a pay-as-you-go model and only have to have some sort of an investment on a monthly basis. It makes it a lot more attractive to these companies that are having these less and less of an IT budget, because now they're spending less on a monthly basis or more on a monthly basis, but they don't have to come up with that large chunk up front. And then when you think about the security, right, just the secure nature of what the cloud has to offer, Microsoft makes one of the largest investments when it comes to security and securing your data and your company's and your customers' data in the cloud than anybody else out there. So we really know what it takes to make sure that your data stays secure and stays protected. And we have the resources and the ability to do that.
Yeah, I think you take that, you take the fact that we have 19 data center regions. We have more data centers than Google and AWS combined, not to mention, and we'll talk about this in the next slide, so I don't want to go over ahead of myself here, but I'm just so excited about it. But I'll tell you, the uptime finally surpassed Amazon. That's right. Amazing, right? That just kills that conversation. Maybe not kills, but it really helps bring that conversation back down. But the other thing too is that your customers are not really understanding the value and concept, because they're still might be afraid of change. They might be afraid of, oh my gosh, everything's working here. But it's not just the customer too, it's also the partner who may not be understanding this and may be thinking to themselves, wait a minute, I'm going to lose out on a lot of products and services if I move this to the cloud. I'm going to toss this back to Garrett. What is your thoughts on, will a partner lose substantially if they move the on-prem with the updating and everything to the cloud?
No, actually, I think it's exactly the opposite of that, actually. I think that when we move our customers from this legacy on-prem environment into a cloud-based environment, you're actually going to create more opportunities for yourself on the services side, because there's so many more high-value tasks that you can work on and that you can pay attention to, versus the old ways where, most of my time was spent doing patching or server upgrades or hardware upgrades. Now we can really focus on those high-value tasks that are out there and generate additional even services opportunities as you look at additional workloads that you can move and things that your customer may not even have thought that they could do, but now with the power of Azure behind them, their potential is unlimited.
Yeah, and then next is really the consumption-based model here, right? You're in a position where we've done the analytics on Azure, right? In the past few years, it's a 27% annual compound annual growth rate, which means that they just buy more. And there's a huge difference between what Azure can provide and what AWS, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you have to understand what the customer needs are, what they're thinking about. Are they thinking about security, right? The encryption, how to get in. Are they thinking about, gosh, I don't want to spend so much money, I don't want to depreciate. And these are some of the questions that, it goes beyond just the technologist or the IT person that's inside that company or IT decision maker. It really comes back down to the finance manager, the operations manager, asking a couple quick questions. Hey, and this is part of finding out, the great information that you need to find out is finding out if they're more towards a CapEx model or more towards an OpEx model. Either way, you can figure it out. All right, so the next one is really how to price. Now, this is something that I think a lot of our partners are confounded by. And what I wanted to do is kind of give you the approach that I took, as well as I've polled a lot of different people in the industry. And it's really to give you a starting point, okay? You see that asterisk next to it, and it's because what I want to make sure, the caveat here, is that this is one way, okay? It's not the right way, it's not the way. This is one way to help create a pricing matrix for yourself to be able to create value. So that's just the caveat I wanted to do before I got into it. So, all right. So the first thing you need to do, and I learned this, I was selling infrastructure as a service 10 years ago. And the main thing, the conversation really comes, I think, first to start with, conducting a network assessment, of their network, right? With your own network scanning tool, or using BitTitan network assessment tool, which I'll ask about Garrett in a second to explain it. But what it's really doing, what you're really looking for is a list of all of the programs that they're running on that server. We're not thinking about the files, because the files are also data storage, but we're looking at the programs. And why are we looking at the programs? Because we need to figure out what they're going to be transitioning and how much power is needed. Now, with the network assessment scan, I'm going to pass this question over to Garrett here. Can you help us understand, or give it a little more in your words, the BitTitan program that partners can use right now?
Yeah, sure. So BitTitan actually has a resource out there. It's the Azure Health Check. That will actually go out and scan your customers' environments for you. And it's not just hey, we're going to hit it every few days and make sure things haven't changed, or one and done. It actually monitors that system on a regular basis for a period of about 2 weeks. And it's looking at things like how much data storage is being used, how much network traffic is being used with that server. A lot of times we find that people have over-provisioned their virtual machines. So they may have 4 virtual processors with 32 gigs of RAM. But the reality of the situation is that server only ever uses 2 processors at a max peak usage, and maybe 16 or 8 gigs of RAM, right? So what this health check tool is doing is it's trying to determine what the actual specifications that are needed would be to move that into Azure. At the end of the 2 weeks, it actually generates a report for you. And inside of that report, it shows you, hey, if you wanted to do a lift and shift and take this system into the cloud today, here is an estimate of what it would cost to run it with the exact, or as near to the exact specs as the customer has today. This number of processors, this amount of memory, this amount of disk space, this amount of network traffic. Here's our estimate. However, based on what they've seen, this is actually the better workload, or the better server level that you may want to consider implementing. So now, instead of doing a one-for-one lift and shift, you have the opportunity to even save your customers money as they're moving into Azure, because they may not need that big beefy server if it's being very underutilized. So it's a great product that allows us to really get that baseline, and I think that's a great word. It's a baseline feel for what it is that you might be spending while moving them into an Azure environment.
That's a great explanation of it. Is what you're doing here, and you got to think about how you're going to price this, right? Because you probably don't know a lot about their network, or maybe you do know a lot about their network. But the main thing is figuring out what are the programs, right? What are the programs that are being utilized? Like Garrett was saying, the Azure Health Check tells you what is being used, right? And that gives you the base. That's the simple way to find the base of your project, really. Okay, so now what do we have on there? You can have an accounting software. You can have a CRM software. You can have, maybe they're hosting their own exchange on there. Maybe they're hosting a platform where people are actually visiting their server to buy and sell on their own website, right? So you're kind of figuring out all these different things. And then what you want to do is make sure you put a list together. I know this seems basic and seems rudimentary, but this is really the step-by-step process to create the pricing model. And then what you need to do, and this is kind of the trick that I was taught about 5 years ago, is I would take each one of the programs. So let's say it was QuickBooks, or it was just some other type of program. What I would do is I'd actually go to Bing and I'd type in, QuickBooks PC requirements. And that gave me a base. It says, okay, it needs X amount of RAM. It needs, X amount of store or CPU capabilities, right? And then I would say, great. And I'd take that list that I'm having, and I would put down the information to the right for each one of those programs. So let's say they had 6 programs. You would find 6 of these programs, and you'd say, okay, list out all of the different CPU requirements. You take those requirements, you add them up, and wham, now you have your base. Now that's if they were going to migrate everything that you had found over. And that's where we're going to get into the next piece of it, is kind of how to design it, okay? But that's the base, right? But before you do that, before you say, okay, I'm going to price this out, one of the least known tools out there, and if you have a Microsoft Action Pack or you have any type of competency here, silver or gold competency, you have access to a team called Napa, North American Partner Assist Team here at Microsoft, and they have unlimited pre-sales support. Okay, so now this is where, after you get that information, you send Napa at Microsoft.com an email with the details saying, hey, I'm trying to price out an Azure opportunity here. Can you please assist? They will respond to it and they'll set up a call with you and they'll talk to you about it. And if it is a big enough opportunity, maybe they'll set up a call with you and the customer and they're going to help you design it and actually price it and put it together. After you have that, what we want you to do is create or actually contact your distributor, right? And all the ones that we have, and actually say, okay, I've got this thing. Can you help me price it? I want to make sure that that's where it's at. Microsoft here, I'm not telling you this is the end all be all, this is the way to do it, but a simple way to price out infrastructure as a service is really this way. Very simple. Find the programs, look them up. If they can't give you, the requirements, and then put it all together. Compound annual growth rate, let me just reiterate this, 27%. It's the gift that keeps on giving, and we'll talk about why it's so different than AWS here in just a second. Garrett, do you have any other thoughts on how into price?
I think the key, you really hit the nail on the head when you said reach out to Napa. Napa is a great resource for our Microsoft partners and probably one of the most underutilized resources that our partners have access to. They will get an engineer on the phone that will help you really figure out pricing for this solution or estimated pricing for this solution so that you can go back to your customer and have the authority and the confidence to say that Microsoft and I work together on this, and this is what we believe the pricing will look like on a recurring basis for you.
Yeah, Napa is really, that's where you're gonna, become different than, the other partners out there. There's really no reason for you to go ahead and just, pull your hair out trying to figure it out or come with a price. Now, this is very interesting. Justin Slagle was telling me this just earlier today. It's like, if you do it just the way that I'm talking about and you price it, but you might price a $1,000 deal where the requirements really would equate to $2,700. And I think consulting Napa at Microsoft, it's, we're all in on the Azure opportunities. Utilizing that, wow, now you have a chance to really shine and be different. Now, hybrid is different, right? Hybrid, what it really means is having a portion of the server on-prem and then a portion up in the cloud. Garrett, tell me if you think I'm going wrong on this one, but if they wanted to move a majority of their programs to the Azure, right, in Azure, their own machine up there in Azure, they would probably need at least to keep the Active Directory server on-prem.
Yeah, I mean, Active Directory is one of those workloads that there really is not a cloud-based Active Directory that can completely replace what is your on-prem Active Directory. And we really do see this hybrid environment being the key to most companies' success, right? They have some sort of infrastructure locally that's handling some things that maybe there are some legacy applications even that can't be moved to the cloud, right? We still have to have a way to communicate with those legacy applications and create that hybrid environment in between Azure and the on-premises environment.
So one of our attendees actually asked, what is the reference again? And it's Napa. Napa at Microsoft. Think wine country, and I mean that's pretty simple. It's the best in the U.S. probably. That's my own opinion, not the opinion of Microsoft. But Napa, just think of that, and you'll be able to get through it. All right. So let's move on here. Contact your distributor. That's the main thing too, right? Because that's where you're going to get your pricing. If you're a CSP provider, contact your distributor. All right, so next one is really how to design it. And you're going to be asking, okay, well, what does that really mean? Well, it really means, okay, now that you've got this list, now that we've figured out kind of how to price it, how are we going to design it, for our customers? How are we going to come in and look like we know what we're talking about? Right, and that really comes down to, okay, so now that you have this list, first thing you're going to do is discussing with your client, and really ask them what they want to do. Well, why are they moving to the cloud? Which programs do they think could move over so that you can result? Now, you're the consultant here, so you can help guide that conversation. Provide them the list of those programs. You'll find in that providing of those lists that a lot of times they're like, wait a minute, I didn't realize we still have that program on there. We don't need any of this stuff anymore. We need to lean out. You want to discuss the value, really, of the service, right? It could be the OpEx versus the CapEx. It could be the security. It could be, never having to depreciate an asset that might be falling down. Having more money at the end of the year, as well as the value of. It's not just infrastructure as a service. There's so many other things. There's storage, security, disaster recovery with that, and that's really how to kind of design. Garrett, what are your thoughts on some of these ideas here?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things we see a lot with our partners is, they go into these customers and they say, the customer says, we want to move to the cloud. We want to get rid of all of our on-prem stuff and we want to go into the cloud. And what we tend to find is that there's typically one or two legacy applications that just aren't going to play well in the cloud. And maybe they're from a company that doesn't exist anymore, so they're not going to be updated. Or it was that guy that we hired way back when that wrote this software for us, and we haven't been able to get a hold of them for 5 or 6 years, right? I mean, we run into that a lot. So it really is important to look at all the applications that they're wanting to move to the cloud and do a good assessment as to which ones are a good cloud play for them and which ones need to remain in their on-premises environment.
Okay. That's some great news. I think the following is, once again, at the end of that, right, at the end of your thing, where are we going again? We're going back to Napa at Microsoft.com and saying, hey, great, I know you heard about from me a few weeks ago. Now over here, is this fine? Do you think that this is okay? And then you talk to your client. So I understand, looking at some of the Q&A questions here, we have a video problem. I guess there's a network issue where they cannot see the video, but we're working on it. And maybe refresh your browser here in a minute, and it'll be back up. But we always have this recorded, so it'll be there for you soon. All right, so we know how to design it. Now let's get into really what is, win the platform. Cloud platform explained. What does this really mean? And what it really means is, what partners can provide, right? And so what I want to do is frame what you can provide. And that's really hybrid cloud, workflow management. You can make money on that. Application monitoring, application workflow and automation, system service and IT management, all these different things you can do. Garrett, do you have any thoughts on, on this particular slide?
Again, we keep coming back to a very similar message, right? Is hybrid really is the key to winning the cloud platform. Having this ability to have a conversation that goes both ways, both from the on-premises as well as in the cloud, is what's really going to keep you working with that customer and letting them know that you really understand what it is they're trying to do, as opposed to just walking in and saying, hey, we're going to just move you to the cloud and be done with it.
Yeah. So the next one is really extend the data center. Now this is where we're talking about, and Garrett, you said something earlier today that was interesting. Infrastructure as a service is the base, right? And you said that Amazon has infrastructure as a service. Mm-hmm. What's the difference? What does Azure provide that Amazon doesn't?
Well, when you look at the opportunity to go into the cloud, there's what everybody's kind of familiar with. It's the infrastructure as a service. And it's, hey, I'm going to spin up a virtual machine and I'm going to connect to it and I'm going to run my workloads. And that's great. Don't get me wrong. We have that opportunity as well. And Amazon has that opportunity. But where we really differentiate ourselves is with this opportunity that we call platform as a service. So we take it beyond infrastructure as a service and we move to platform as a service. So with infrastructure as a service, you're still managing a server operating system environment. But with platform as a service, we're going to take away that operating system management from you. We're going to handle that part. We'll take care of the updates. You basically get to bring your information and just work. A perfect example of this would be SQL. So we have Azure SQL databases. With an Azure SQL database, you bring your data. You bring your tables, you bring your queries, you bring everything you need to run that SQL database. But we're going to take care of things on the back end for you. We make sure your SQL server is up to date. You don't even have to be exposed to that. As a matter of fact, you'll never log into the actual SQL server. You literally connect to it through the SQL Server Management Studio and operate on it just as if it was your own machine, but knowing on the back end that Microsoft is taking care of all of that. So we're taking an additional layer of work away from you as the partner and allowing us to handle that, which frees up more time for you to work with that customer on the actual data and getting into the, the nuts and bolts of what it is they're trying to accomplish.
Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate that. All right, so now, modernizing the data center piece of it. We talked about the AWS and the platform. We talked about, compound annual growth rate, such a big difference, right? And I'd like to ask you really if you could just briefly touch on the Active Directory optimization possibly, and maybe the single sign-on. Garrett, do you feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah, of course. So, I mentioned we talked about Active Directory being an on-premises environment, but we obviously do have Active Directory in the cloud. Everything we do in Office 365, everything we do inside of Azure is all based on Azure Active Directory. So if you're using either one of those services today, guess what? You're using Azure's Active Directory. And we have this ability to connect the two environments. So if your customer has an on-premise environment and they have their Azure or their Office 365 environment, we connect those two environments together through the use of a single server and a single tool that synchronizes those identities. And the beauty behind that is it really gives you the ability to provide that single sign-on experience to the customer. So now the customer doesn't have to sign on and remember 5 different passwords. They sign on once to their machine, and as long as it's configured properly, they'll have single sign-on into Office 365, into the Azure tenant, all without the need of setting up these really complex solutions that require like federated services or things like that. And we take it even a step further than that too. We actually give you the ability to add on our multi-factor authentication service. So if you're an admin today and you're administering somebody else's Office 365 tenant, or you're administering somebody's Azure tenant for them, please turn on multi-factor authentication. You don't want to be the next story of, this partner's credentials were leveraged and accessed this customer's tenant without their permission, right? By turning on that multi-factor experience, you really do make it so that there's that added layer of security and authentication, ensuring that you really are who you say you are. And all this is part of our enterprise mobility and security offering that we have that's all part of Azure and Office 365 as well.
Great, yeah, that's what we've been talking a lot about. When you're transforming the data center, and really the opportunity, you need to understand, okay, where is this going, right? And it, by 2020, the public cloud market will reach $191 billion, right? More than 65% of enterprise IT organizations will commit to a hybrid cloud scenario or environment. And the growth of hybrid cloud will reach about $84.67 billion in 2019. Garrett, would you agree, in your expert opinion, that technology is evolving and we're going towards hybrid cloud environments?
You know what? Technology is evolving at a rate that we have never seen before, I don't think. If you look at the way we at Microsoft are innovating today and the time it takes us to get to market from the time we define requirements for a solution to the time we actually deliver it in the Azure cloud. I have a friend that's a program manager inside of Azure, and he told me a story of one time where they took a business requirement from a banking customer, and within 4 weeks, literally, they went from requirements gathering to public deployment to full-scale deployment inside of Azure. So just the speed that we're developing things today and the speed at which technology is changing is just phenomenal. And it really is the hybrid story that's going to help you capitalize on this cloud market to get your customers there.
Awesome. So what would you say are the insights to maximizing profitability? It's really about capitalizing, right, on growing customer awareness, leveraging your existing customer base, plan for the development and delivery of the product IP. But actually, I would challenge this. I would say that your number one insight to maximize profitability is utilizing your IUR rights. Garrett, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. As a Microsoft partner with an Action Pack subscription or a competency, you are entitled to use Office 365. You're entitled to use Enterprise Mobility and Security. You even get Azure credits, just to name a few of the things. And these are part of being a Microsoft partner. And it is so important to be using those technologies internally. We've done study after study that shows that our partners that are leveraging the technology internally are selling that technology at a much faster rate and with a lot more success because they really understand how it works before they go out to the customer and try to say, I think this is how it works.
Yep. I think that's right. I did it myself when I was a partner, and that was 3 years ago. Learning Azure. Gosh, so much has changed. The user interface, holy smokes. I was just looking at it the other day, I'm like, oh my gosh, where do I go to get this? And then that's the thing we're trying to help you out with is IUR rights. If you use those, you're not as confused. You're not like the first Azure opportunity you get, you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me so long to figure it out. Get in there, provision it, provision the server, right? Provision the virtual machines, the hard drive space, the memory. Put some stuff on there, interact with it, create a VPN tunnel, right? To see how it works. I think it's just almost necessary. All right, so now that we've done that. We've got through Azure. Now the next kind of thing that does really tie into this is really the business decision maker discovery questions, right? And I think a lot of partners out there, kind of struggle maybe with this, and I'm happy to help, share this stuff with you. And really, the idea behind, business decision maker discovery questions are really understanding the customer journey, right? And understanding where our customers are in the journey, but understanding that you can always sell pretty much with that, whatever time they are. So, on the inside, it's the customer. On the outside, it's the partner. So on the bottom, the customers, they try it, then they deploy it. Then the next phase is they use it. Then the next phase is they value it, right? They see the value of it, and then hopefully they renew it. So your opportunity is really to sell in the sell phase, also the onboard phase, the manage phase, and the enhance phase. But you need to be able to open up conversations that allow you to cross-sell and upsell. That's what really this really, by being involved with your customer, not just selling, because most partners are up in the sell and try stage. They're just selling Office 365 seats. That's it. They leave it there. But they're leaving a lot of potential opportunity on the table. So now that we understand the life cycle, we can kind of move through this. So in every type of conversation, you want to have a directed conversation starter, right? You want to kind of say something that's relevant, but also relevant to them, but also relevant to you. You want to have a powerful impact statement. Super important to have this. And this really could be something like after you've kind of gone through the pleasantries, you can say, well, John, yeah, that was, thanks a lot for sharing, with me about your family and stuff like that. So, before we go into, this opportunity that you called me in for, we were working with a health management company just like yours, and it had a lot of struggles, and we were able to go in there and help them increase efficiency by 27% by reducing headcount and reducing, expenses that really weren't purposeful, and really helping them become lean. So, John, can you tell me what do you have some of the same challenges, I imagine, in the industry? And can you help me understand them? What challenges are you going through, right? That's a purposely built starter question, right? So you start with something like that. Then the nice thing about that is it helps you create and frame the actual appointment. One of the things, if you've seen any of my PLG videos, everything should be scripted. You should know exactly where things are going. That, like attorneys, if you look at an attorney, a trial attorney, do you think they go in there with just a set of questions and they're hoping they're going to get the right answer? I would say no, they don't. They go in there with a very specific set of questions for that very specific person that maybe they're litigating against, and they know the answer to every one of the questions that they have. So utilizing the BDM discovery questions, what we're wanting you to do is change the way that you're going about selling to your clients using Azure, right? So what we want to do is start off, and you can start off with another one saying, we saved XYZ company, 40% of their IT spend by moving these old antiquated servers to the cloud. Do you have antiquated servers? So we want you to use connections and to clarify, but after they respond to you, okay, what's very important is that you follow up. You clarify their statement, right? Then you probe them for some more answers with another open-ended type of question. Then you redirect it back to them and usually get agreement. One of the things that I used to do as a salesperson is always try to get a whole bunch of small yeses to get you to that one big yes at the end. And I would close a question with like, John, you just expressed to me that you're having troubles with your IT department and your marketing department and operations department collaborating, and this is causing a really big expense for you and a real problem. So you would agree with me in your expert opinion that if you could get that fixed, things would work a lot better, right? So there's a close-ended. You're getting them to agree to the fact that they are an expert in their field and that you've helped them understand that you understand their problems and issues. And then you come back to the close-ended confirmation, and that's what I just kind of explained to you. You would agree in your infinite wisdom, or you would agree as an expert in your field, that if we were to minimize X, Y, and Z, we could maximize profit, and that would make you look good, right? right? But then, next thing it is, now it goes back around, because what we want to do is you might be talking to IT, and that's only one department that's inside of this business, but you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, maybe I want to talk to operations and marketing and all these different scenarios. So now we come back to another directed conversation starter. And that could be, hey, thanks so much for sharing with that information. Part of that company we were talking about, one of the things that we did is we were able to really talk to all the other marketing and sales and operations and finance, and we were able to figure out a way to help them collaborate better. Now we have a lot more friends and they're being more productive. Do you have issues with that within your organization? And then now it's time for them to come and start talking, and then you redirect, and now you're getting through. So what we're going to do here is transition into 3 different videos here, which are just really fantastic. And I've got to come up here and look at it, and wait a minute, we're going to go back. We just did a little error here. Hold on. Okay, so we're going to go to the video. Well, as we had a couple of mistakes earlier, I think this is the wrong deck with the videos. We don't have the videos on there. So basically, we'll move on. We'll move on. So directed conversation starter question. What you want to do, and these are some steps to help you out. Okay, it's understand. You want to identify whom you'll be speaking to, right? You want to identify what is the information that you're going to be asking, and then you want to develop a credibility and interest building statement. So when you're talking to your customers, identify whom, and what does that mean? Well, you're researching the company, you're finding out who the business decision maker is. You need to find out the right person. Don't pitch to the person who can never make a decision. You need to ask that. And then you need to figure out what is the information that you're going to seek. Now, in a hybrid environment, you're going to be asking them about disaster recovery. You're going to ask them about security. You're going to ask them about what are you using Amazon for? Do you have a platform as a service? Do you know that you could, possibly do this cheaper, faster, better, more efficient, and add business intelligence and EMS and all these things? But you need to figure out, what information you want, and then you want to create that credibility and interest building statement. And then you want to develop a question that's going to help you uncover information that you seek. Open-ended questions, questions that do not elicit a yes or no. Those are the questions that you want to do. Super important. That's the way you're going to increase your exposure and your lead count and the ability to get into. So an example, we want to bring you a couple examples. A sales director, identify what information you're looking to see. So in here, we're trying to figure out how effective their competitive information sharing is, maybe with all of their reps, right? Their reps are out there. How are they sharing this information between so that they can always be better and more competitive? Develop a credibility statement. Many of the companies I talk to have a big struggle when disseminating competitor information, and but if they're able to timely and effective, get it out there, they're at an advantage from another organization, right? So that's the credibility and interest building statement. And then what you want to do is develop a question to uncover. So what challenges do you have with your current competitive database and processes in supporting the sales team's need for competitive sales information? What a great question. That's going to open up so many different avenues and ways that you're going to be able to figure out how to sell them. All right, so now let's get into a different department, the HR, right? The HR group. So who we're going to identify? We're going to identify the HR manager, and we're going to ask them some specific questions. We're going to figure out how effective is their new employee onboarding process. That's what we want. Why? Because we can sell them Skype for Business, right? We can sell them, Azure EMS, multi-factor authentication, remote workforce, Office 365. So that's why we're asking that question. Then we want to develop the credibility statement. It's really several companies I've met with recently have expressed frustrations around how long it takes them to get their new employees productive because the resources that they need are hard to find. Are the resources of the Microsoft Partner Network hard to find, Garrett? Yes. Yes, but that's okay. We're working on that. And then the next thing is really develop a question, right? Your question needs to be, what challenges are you faced with in regards to providing new employees highly available, accessible content? You want them to tell you what's going on. All right, marketing manager. Different department. Every department has something different. Now, in a marketing manager concept, we basically are looking like, how effective are they creating online customer communities, right? Because they're thinking, okay, how are we getting our presence out, right? And that's the question you're going to ask. And then you can have your credibility and interest building statement with, once again, one of the things I often hear from companies I meet with is their frustration effectively building, and creating online communities. You can say that. That's your opening ended. You're sounding more like a consultant, somebody who's interested in helping them solve their problems. And then lastly, you need to develop a statement. It's really tell me a little bit about your efforts to use online communities to collect customer input and drive brand loyalty. Now, the whole message behind all three of these different, whether there's marketing, sales, and HR, there's different paths. It doesn't all have to be the same one. But what we're trying to do is help you understand sales. This is sales. This is real, sales and marketing, and really how to help increase, overall, ROI on that. All right. A lot to cover today. Last three things today are the partner tools. This is cool because these are three things that we haven't really talked about a whole lot, okay? And these things are things that Microsoft provides to its partners to help build brand loyalty, help build your practice, drive your revenue. And the first one really is and they're called adoption path tools, and really it's the value discovery workshop. So you want to use this when you're trying to find the value opportunity stage of the customer. You're going to be using this when you're in the sell and try and the value and enhance. And the reason why is you're going to use this workshop to help uncover potential opportunities. That's what this does, and we really want to help you out with. You can always check it out. At the bottom, there's a link, valuediscoveryworkshop.com. The next path is the customer immersion experience, probably my most favorite program here at Microsoft, besides Project LeadGen, because that's the best. But the customer immersion experience is lights out, right? And you really want to put them in the enhance, renew, and sell stage. This is when you want them. And basically, what it is the ability for you to bring in 8 to 10 clients into a room and give them a full immersion experience of Office 365 and collaboration. You become a CIE facilitator, you bring them in, and the conversion rates after that 4-hour session are astronomical. They're really fantastic. Garrett, do you have any other thoughts on the CIE program?
No, one of the things I love about the CIE program is that we give you this fully functional environment that you can leverage to work with these customers and really show them the power of how Office 365 works without having to spend a lot of time up front on your end building these demo environments. It's very easy to provision, and it's a great way to generate additional leads and opportunities for yourself.
Great. One of the questions we had here is Dovel's question, when I call a lead, is it better to introduce myself with the founder and CEO or without? That's a good question. I think you should talk about you're the founder. I mean, it's your title, it's your company. I would suggest that you explain it to them. And the nice thing about that is that you actually step up a level and you're able to call in and say, hey, this is Dovel, CEO. Need to talk to John Smith. Thank you. And that's kind of how you get past the gatekeepers. You just don't let them have the opportunity to say what this is all about. You're basically saying yes. So you're kind of helping that out. All right. So with that, we'll get back into the last couple of things. Customer immersion experience, super awesome. Please go to Microsoft.cie.com. Microsoftcie.com, not .com, to go do that. Remember, this deck is always in the Project LeadGen Power, PLG Power on the web. You can always download it and get all this stuff. Now, last thing is the Fast Track, which is a great partner tool. And I'll let Garrett kind of check in on this one while I take a drink of water.
Sure.
Okay.
So, Fast Track is a great service that Microsoft offers. It really helps you when you're building out your customer success plan, right? What is it going to look like for my customer as we migrate them and we move them, whether it's Office 365, Enterprise Mobility and Security, or even Azure, right? How does the success plan look, and what is it going to take to get them from where they want to be or where they are today to where they want to be? And it's great because it really automates some of the low margin intensive tasks that you as partners have had to do in the past, and allows you again to focus on being more of the overarching project owner and helping you really focus on these, again, high value tasks that are going to bring and elevate your status with the customer, right? With Microsoft helping on the back end.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and it's not, a lot of times partners have thought, okay, it's just 50 seats and above, right? But the tools are available for any partner. Not necessarily the engagement, but the tools are available, which I think is really, really neat. You know, there was a question, and I apologize, I didn't see this when Derek Gabriel came up, and I think it had to do with Azure, and it's really towards Garrett, is, do we need to do anything on our end, or will it just start backing up automatically? I think that's...
Well, so I think it depends on what you're referring to, right? Obviously, this is this could be a much larger conversation. Azure has redundancy built into it. So when you store data in Azure, we're actually storing 3 copies of the data by default. Okay. And if you choose geographically redundant data, then we're storing 6 copies of your data. And that all happens by default. But I will say very clearly, it does not alleviate the fact that you have to have a good backup and disaster recovery plan for your customer. And I notice I said "and" there. You need to make sure you have a good backup plan, so you're helping your customer with backing up their data. We have Azure Backup that'll help you with that. But you also need to make sure that you have that disaster recovery plan available as well, and that it's a tested plan that works for your customers. So yes, Azure has redundancy built into it. We're very proud of that fact, but there is still additional layers that you as the partner need to work on to help make sure your customer has as much protection as possible.
Thank you, Garrett. I really, really appreciate that.
Sure.
All right, so let's move on here. Lastly is Project LeadGen next steps. If you haven't done it already, I would encourage you to go to aka.ms ready to go /PLG. That is where our training module is. Complete the first 5, send an email in, and that's the idea is to help you integrate inside business communities, and we're there to help. Now, if you have any questions for Garrett, you can always reach him at gbundy@microsoft.com. gbundy@microsoft.com. We're all here to help. We all work on the same team, and we're all here to make your lives better and help you achieve more and do more. So in summary, we talked about Azure. We talked about how to build a practice, price it, sell it, design it. We're here to help you with that. So if you have any questions, no problem. We want to remind you that please, when I send out the emails, register for this event, and we will provide access to the actual call-in feature, right? We'll actually give you the link afterwards, but please register when I send it out because we will be raffling off a drone. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up my actual registration page and figure out who today is actually going to be winning the registration or the actual drone that we're putting up together. All right, so we have, let me go ahead and click on the registrants. Now, Garrett, I'm going to ask you to pick a number between 1 and 87.
Is my name on the list somewhere?
No, your name is not on the list.
All right, 41.
41, okay, so 41 is Eileen Pernito, Cloud First Incorporated. All right, Eileen, send me an email, askcrancer@microsoft.com. I need your address, and I'm going to go ahead and send you a Microsoft drone. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming. Next week, we should have Ingram Micro on, and that's going to be, I think, a great thing to talk about what they're providing their partners, and we'll have some great stuff. And starting next week, I'm also going to have just 2 different updates. You'll see an email that has 2 updates, what's going to be on the call, and some cool partner tools. Anyways, hey, thanks everyone for coming today. Really appreciate it. Great day today. Look forward to seeing you. And if you missed part of the broadcast, we'll have it up for you pretty soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.